What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. It is your boy Deviation, and today is a different type of episode. As you can see, we're full screen, and we're having a little bit of fun. So, last night, college football playoff brackets came out, and I believe that the committee got it perfect in all reality. Now, granted, in my head, I think if you're Clemson, you should get the home game because you're the ACC champion, even if you're going up against Texas. Like, I other than the four seeds getting the bye, I think that fifth conference champion needs to have a home game. That's just me. That's all I need to say. But everyone's complaining about SMU getting in over Alabama and all the Alabama fans being like, "Oh, we should have gotten in." You lost to Vandy. You lost to Oklahoma. You got dog walked by Oklahoma. You didn't score a single touchdown. You got one field goal. That was it. Now, don't get me wrong. That Ryan Williams touchdown should have been overturned. That should have been a touchdown. That ref throwing the flag as the touchdown happens, that man had a money line on Oklahoma, and he sold like no tomorrow. But the college football season in general has been crazy. And it has been some of the most fun football that I have watched in years. I've barely even kept up with the NFL, and I still know a lot about what's happened in the NFL this season, but for the most part, I've kept up with everything that has happened in college football. To Ashton Genty and Travis Hunter being the two Heisman candidates, to the fact that Cam Scadaboo, Arizona State's running back, on par with what Genty's doing, but a lot less, even though he honestly is playing at the same level as Ashton Genty. And it was funny because he did an interview stating how like he's been overlooked his whole life. He started in the FCS, came up to the FBS, and in my opinion, he's the reason that Arizona State is in the playoff and has made the playoff. That offense revolves around him, and I'm going to be real. Oregon's already shown that you can let Ashton Genty do whatever you want. He played like one half in Eugene, and Boise State lost by 3. So if anyone's doubting Boise State, let's wait to see what happens. Now, when you look at it, Oregon, Boise State, Georgia, Arizona State, those are your two buys. And I heard something earlier on the Joel Klatt show where he stated that Oregon, and it's dumb for me to even think about it this way, but he stated that Oregon got shafted essentially and where they're being put because they have to go through either Tennessee, Ohio State, or Clemson, Texas. So they have a harder route to the Natty than say Boise State or Georgia. And when I'm looking at this, I'm like, isn't that what you want Oregon to do though? You want them to go up against the best in the playoff to prove to you that when and if they get to the Natty, they are dominant enough to win. I'm going to be real. I'm glad they put him there. You lost, you won by 1 point, 1 point against Ohio State. And your coach abused a rule that gave you the win, essentially. Because if Ohio State is able to get a few more yards and stop the clock and kick the field goal, they win. You abused a rule. And that rule's being looked at now to make sure it doesn't happen again. It happened, though. Oregon wins by 1 point. You won by 3 against Boise State, who is in the Mountain West. That says a lot about your program, too. Don't get me wrong, though. Trayshawn Holden, Dylan Gabriel, everyone on the Oregon team, I'm not discrediting them. I do think they are one of the top 5 teams in the country. Now, what gets even funnier is when we look at the game against Clemson versus Texas. I think that's going to be a closer game than a lot of people realize. A lot of people are stating that Clemson's going to lose that game because Texas is way too dominant. I'm going to be completely honest with you. From what I've seen from Clemson this year, even though they have those 3 losses and you lost to South Carolina, I'm going to be honest. I still think they have a chance of winning that game. Do I think it's going to be an outright win? Hell no. It would be a battle, and it would come down to the last second. I think it comes down to a field goal because I don't trust that Texas offense. I genuinely don't. When it comes to Clemson, I trust Cade Klubnik, even though I think he can make some questionable plays every now and then, but I trust their offense to be a lot more conservative and being able to get the ball in the playmakers' hands than I do Texas. Steve Sarkisian has shown us throughout the year that he can call the right plays with his OC. But what they haven't been able to do is fully trust Quinn Ewers. That first goal line stand against A&M, you bring in Arch Manning, he runs it in for a touchdown. And then you watch the rest of that game, your running game is what got you the win, essentially. Quintravious Wisner, or Quintravion Wisner, he ran all over the A&M defense. Quinn barely threw. And when you did, you got one 40-yard bomb up the sideline, and then everything else was chunk plays. And then he did throw a pick six, and then he did fumble it. Against Georgia, he couldn't really get anything going. That running game saved him. You get a couple of RPOs, and that works. But Georgia stands their ground. You won by 3 points against Vandy. Vandy almost beat Texas. That's what a lot of people... I understand that they have a top 5 defense in the country. I understand that. But Texas hasn't given me enough to fully look at them and say, yeah, they're going to go to the Natty. I think they could lose against Clemson. I think that if they go against ASU, that I think Cam Scatterbo can run over them. Because I believe that those run plays that Arizona State have are going to be a lot better than what most of the teams that have ran against Texas have done. They're just a lot more creative with their run game than the other teams. Do I think Texas would beat Arizona State? 110%. But at the same time, I think that Cam Scatterbo could keep it close and keep the ball in ASU's hands to the point that Texas would have to fight just to get the win. And then you go up against Oregon. I wholeheartedly believe that offense will make your defense tired. And then the defense for Oregon would sleep Texas. I do not believe that Texas wins against Oregon if they make it that far. I genuinely don't. And there's a lot of people that are going to be like, oh, you're an A&M fan. You're just saying that. I'm going to be completely real with you. You tell me with everything that you've seen from this Texas team that you trust Quinn Ewers to take you to the Natty. People have been calling for Arch Manning all year long, to the point that me and one of my friends, Garrett, he's a Texas fan. I'm an A&M fan. We talked about it for the Georgia game. He was just like, I think that Sark should grab him by the balls, say you're sitting this game, and start Manning. I have heard that time and time again from Texas fans that they want Arch Manning to start because they don't trust Quinn. You have the running backs. You have Quintravion Wisner, Jaden Blue. You have Isaiah Bond, Matthew Golden. You have weapons. And Quinn Ewers is just not opening up the offense enough for those weapons to be utilized. Defenses are cracking down and keeping you from doing anything. Your run game is great, but at the same time, once you take that away on first and second down, you got to throw it. And that's where the issue comes. Like that A&M game, you scored 17 points in the first half. And then you got stalemated in the second because you turned it over twice and then you had a blocked punt. That can't happen against Clemson. That can't happen against Georgia. And it did. Now, don't get me wrong, Georgia, your kicker missed. In the Georgia game, Texas kicker missed too, but at the same time, made some great kicks to keep you in the game. So at the same time, you still had an opportunity to win, and you couldn't commit. You went up against a backup in Gunnar Stockton. You took out Carson Beck at the end of the first half, and you still couldn't win the game. It says a lot. Now, when we look at Indiana Notre Dame, that's SMU. I know it's Tennessee and Ohio State they're playing. Then you get, I think it's Indiana Notre Dame, SMU Penn State. I should have this up, but I thought I could trust my mind. But I guess I'm completely wrong right now. I just know the top 4 and then Texas and Clemson. So, I was right. I was actually right. Jesus, okay. I should have just trusted myself. I second-guessed myself. You get Tennessee, Ohio State, and I think that's going to be a great game, and I think Tennessee has a chance of winning this game. I like Ohio State, but Will Howard, he has an inability to keep the game close. Like, he turns it over when he shouldn't. He makes bad plays and decisions. I'm going to be real. Unless he goes to the NFL, I don't think he starts next year. Like, genuinely, I do not think that he starts for Ohio State. He would get benched in a heartbeat, in my opinion. And honestly, that Tennessee team, they're going to run it on you, and they're going to open up that pass game. And what we've seen against Ohio State, you can run on them. Now, granted, they took away Penn State's running, and Drew Aller had to commit, but they also took out Drew Aller, and they brought the backup in. The backup still did work. So I think Tennessee genuinely has a chance of winning this game. I just like Texas, I don't trust the Ohio State offense because of Will Howard. I don't. There's too many variables there that he can turn the ball over, and that Tennessee team will make you pay. They genuinely will. Like, both of those first round games, they could be coin flips if Will Howard or Quinn Ewers turns the ball over. Like, genuinely believe those could be coin flips. I do not think that one of those teams will win the game outright. If one of them does, then that means that they played a safe game and they didn't give them the chance to overturn it in all actuality. I just don't think that Clemson or Tennessee lets them get ahead of them that much. I think it's a coin flip at this point, literally. Then you get SMU Penn State. SMU came back from 17 against Clemson. I don't think you do that against Penn State. James Franklin is on thin ice. He lost to Ohio State and got blown out. And then you come off the fact that you make it all the way back and you have the opportunity to tie the ball game up against Oregon in the Big Ten Championship, and you can't. I think that Penn State team is going to have a lot of revenge on their mind, and I think they're going to go in there and handle SMU. It's a great story, but just it was the right choice to put them in. I think Penn State would have dog-walked Alabama. Really and truly, I genuinely believe they would. I believe they would have dog-walked Alabama. I think SMU has a better chance of keeping the game interesting than what Alabama did, because Alabama at this time can't prove to me enough that the playmakers they have will be able to separate and get open. Ryan Williams is the star of that offense, and he is literally 17 years old. Jalen Milroe, he gets too run happy, too trigger happy, and is throwing the ball in places he shouldn't. Give it another year. Let the actual Kalen DeBoer team come together, and I think Alabama will be fine. But this year, I think it was the right decision. I don't trust their team, offense or defense, because they have given up way too many big plays. It even showed last year against Auburn where they had essentially a 47-yard bomb to win the game. Should have never happened. They should have lost that. Wouldn't even been in the playoff. So I think it was the right decision because I think Penn State would have walked all over Alabama. SMU, on the other hand, I think they keep it close at the beginning, but then I think Penn State at the end runs ahead. That's my one game where I'm just like, okay, Penn State wins that. I genuinely believe Penn State wins that, but I don't think it's an outright win. I think they got to fight in the fourth quarter, and then Penn State wins. And because SMU keeps it close in the first half, third quarter, they kind of go back and forth, and then Penn State runs away in the fourth. Indiana, Notre Dame, I'm going to be real with you. Even though this is going to be at home for Notre Dame, I think Indiana wins this. From what I saw against A&M, NIU, and even against Army, and what Indiana's defense will do if Riley Leonard plays like he did at the beginning of those games, Indiana has the opportunity to go up 14-21-0 at the very beginning, because I think Riley Leonard, at the beginning of almost every game, he makes terrible reads and terrible decisions, and then he gets comfortable and then makes the plays. I don't think Indiana lets him do that. I think this is going to be a good game too. I think it comes down to the fourth quarter. I'm giving Indiana the win. In all reality, I have Penn State and Indiana from the Big Ten winning, and then we get Penn State versus Boise State, Indiana versus Georgia. That's just my prediction. When it comes to Clemson, Texas, and then Tennessee, Ohio State, I can't give you a definitive answer. I genuinely can't. Those two games, I have a coin flip. I actually have a coin flip on those two first-round games. Like, I really do. Penn State and Indiana are my guaranteed wins. Just because I don't trust Notre Dame's offense to keep up with them, and I don't trust SMU to fully push out the way that they did for the whole season. I think Penn State and Indiana win those games. The college football season has been amazing. The conference championships were crazy. I think SMU Oh, dude. Oh, giving up that kick return and then Clemson getting into field goal range, that was a heartbreaker. But I chose Clemson to win that game because I didn't think SMU could fully pull it off. But at the same time, I did think that they deserved to be in the playoff with their record. Everyone's going to be like, oh, strength of schedule this, strength of schedule that. I'm going to be honest with you. You look at strength of schedule, South Carolina, I think they should have been in over Alabama. South Carolina played LSU, A&M, Clemson, Alabama, and a few others. Those are higher rated teams. Alabama played Mercer as one of their teams. They played Oklahoma and lost. Played Vandy and lost. Played Ole Miss and lost. No, Tennessee and lost. I think if you're looking at strength of schedule, I would put South Carolina in over Alabama for the wins that they had. They barely lost to Alabama. I said Alabama weird. Barely lost to Alabama. Barely lost to LSU. Like, at that point, I'm looking at it, the blowout loss against Oklahoma and then giving up 45 to Vandy, I would have put South Carolina in over Alabama. I wouldn't have put Miami in because Miami had to come back from like 20-something against Cal and also didn't put Duke away until the fourth quarter. Miami were frauds, like genuine frauds. Miami should have never been in that consideration from week 6. Week 6, I think at that point Miami was showing that they weren't for real. Clemson and SMU were. Even though Clemson has 3 losses, I think they were showing left, right, and sideways that they were playoff caliber. Miami, not so much. That's just what I believe. South Carolina would have been over Alabama and Miami, but I know the committee, if SMU wins that game, Alabama gets in. I don't trust Alabama's offense or defense. I didn't trust the way that they played against Vandy and Oklahoma. It's just the way the cookie crumbles for me. I think that with strength of schedule and the way that they played, South Carolina would have been in over Alabama if I was on the committee. Now, just for I can't give you an understanding when it comes to the top part of the bracket because of the coin flips I have with Clemson, Texas, and Tennessee, Ohio State. But Penn State, Boise State, Indiana, Georgia, I'm going to be real with you. And this is going to make people question my sanity, even though they already do. Boise State beats Penn State. Ashton Jeanty is a different breed of running back. Even against Oregon, he ran over them. And I believe he'll do the same against Penn State. I think he'll run over them more so than what he did against Oregon. Their game plan is built around Ashton. And he makes people miss. Even if he gets stuffed at the line, he gets 2 to 3 yards after that. Like, he genuinely does. And their quarterback is nothing to put down. Like, Boise State's quarterback definitely can make plays with his legs and his arms. Those receivers are good. Everyone looks at Ashton Jeanty, and that's what Penn State's going to do, and they're going to get rolled. Boise State's defense is nothing shy. Nothing. See, this is what happens. I try and figure out words, and then they slip my mind. Boise State's defense is not bad. When you lose to Oregon by 3 points, that means your defense played a damn good game against the best team in the country. You did as well as Ohio State did, in my opinion. You're going to sit there and tell me that Penn State got beat by Oregon and Ohio State, but Boise State doesn't even look like a win against you, but yet they lost by 3 to Oregon earlier this season? I think at that point, people are overlooking Boise State, and that's why I'm giving them the win. Genuinely believe that Boise State beats Penn State. It's not outright, but it's close, but Boise State wins. And then we get down to Indiana, Georgia. Georgia's got it. That defense is too crazy, too good. And even with Gunnar Stockton or Carson Beck at the helm, I think the receivers get open, and it's just going to be just like Ohio State. So my matchup there is going to be Boise State and Georgia. And I'm going to be honest, Wisner and Blue were able to get open and run against that Georgia defense. And I think that Boise State's quarterback is more trustworthy than Quinn Ewers. And with Ashton Jeanty, I'm going to put it this way. You thought 8 overtimes against Georgia Tech and 1 overtime against Texas was bad. Give me an overtime classic with Boise State and Georgia, with Georgia winning at the end. Boise State is a feel-good story, but I think that Georgia wins. The only reason I'm giving Georgia the win is because I think their playmakers on offense are going to do more to get ahead than what Boise State is with Ashton. Because you get Malachi Starks, Jalen Walker, and a few others. That pass game is going to be very, very minimal for Boise. Ashton Jeanty will get his touches, and Ashton Jeanty will run. I think this game has the potential to be Ashton Jeanty and Trevor Etienne going crazy. Like, legitimately think Georgia leans on Trevor Etienne for the majority of that game, but Georgia wins. So Georgia goes to the Natty. Georgia goes to the Natty. Now, let me put it to you this way. If Clemson wins and goes to play Arizona State, I would take Arizona State. If Texas wins, it's going to be a battle, but I think Texas wins that game. And then Tennessee, Ohio State. If Tennessee goes to play Oregon, give me Oregon. If Ohio State goes, give me Ohio State over Oregon. I genuinely think you give me that rematch, Ohio State wins. At the wire, I think Ohio State wins. And then at that point, it's either Arizona State and Oregon, or Texas, Ohio State. If you have Arizona State and Oregon, give me Oregon. It would be Oregon, Georgia in my natty. If it's Texas, Ohio State, it's Ohio State, Georgia. And I'm going to be honest with you. With either one of those, I think the Big Ten wins. I think either way, Ohio State or Oregon would be the national champion. That's my prediction. It's either Ohio State or Oregon. I don't think Georgia wins those games. I don't think anyone in the bottom bracket beats out Oregon or Ohio State, in my opinion. The only one that has the chance is Georgia, but I'm still giving it to the Big Ten. I give the Big Ten the benefit of the doubt here to win the national championship. A lot of people are going to hear this. A lot of people are going to hear my thoughts, think I'm convoluted and stuff like that, and that's fine. I haven't made a video like this in so long. I haven't made a video like this since the beginning of the college football NFL season. So my thoughts and everything, I having to come up with words. Like, I have the understanding of what I want to talk about and what I need to do, but when it comes to giving you the verbiage and everything, I kind of lose track and mislead because I'm the type of person that doesn't use big words all the time. And when it comes to journalism, I'm still very much learning. I'm still young in that aspect, but at the same time, I listen Joel Klatt, Colin Cowherd, even everyone over at ESPN, Barstool Sports and everything. A lot of these podcasters that I listen to as well, I get their thoughts and I'm just like, they're not wrong, but they're also not right. But also, I'm not wrong and I'm not right. These are very much my opinions, and I think the committee got it right with SMU. Genuinely believe so. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I think things change because here's the one thing that I get. A lot of people be like, oh, the SEC screwed themselves from having multiple teams in because they beat each other. That's the thing. Once you say that, and then you come back at other teams being like, oh, they wouldn't have even been able to beat this team in the SEC or that team in the SEC. Once you start breaking it down and you see that you're still comparing teams to SEC teams, even though the SEC is beating each other, Vandy was good. South Carolina was good. Auburn made big plays. Oklahoma made big plays. Texas in its first year goes to the playoff, goes to the SEC championship. Georgia, not even fully healthy or at strength, back and forth, winning, losing, makes it to the SEC championship and wins. Alabama beats good teams, but then loses to bad teams. A&M goes on a miracle run, loses to South Carolina, loses in OT to Auburn, and then loses to Texas. But at the same time, keeps it close in almost every game that they played, even against South Carolina, even against Notre Dame. Even if the scoreboard at the end said that they scored 2 more than A&M, it was like throwaway points. That you play that game against Notre Dame 9 times out of 10, A&M wins. But it's one of those things where you look at the SEC, every team is good. Florida played upset 3 weeks in a row. Or 2 weeks in a row. No. Yeah, 2 weeks in a row. Beat Ole Miss when they shouldn't have. Beat LSU when they shouldn't have. Knocked Ole Miss and LSU out of, well, knocked LSU out of the rankings, knocked Ole Miss out of the playoff. That's what Florida did with DJ Lagway. But then you look at the Big 12. The Big 12 was better than it used to be. BYU, Utah, Colorado, Arizona State, Iowa State. All of these teams that no one projected in the Big 12 to actually be good. They thought that they weren't even going to get anywhere near the Big 12 title or even a playoff. But at the end of the year, Colorado held its own destiny. Kansas State, Iowa State, BYU, Utah. When we were thinking that Baylor, Texas Tech, TCU, and these other teams in the Big 12 were going to do more. But then you get the likes of Boise State, dog walking the Mountain West, and coming up short by 3 points against Oregon, like I've said for the umpteenth time in this video. College football in general this year has been utterly insane. To the point that Michigan, who is not good in the slightest, still beat Ohio State and knocked them out of the Big Ten championship game and put Penn State in there. That was cinema. That was a movie to watch because Will Howard made multiple different errors during that game. But then you have the feel-good story. Army and Navy went 10-0 for the first time since not 10-0. Not 10-0. They were just undefeated for the first time halfway through the season since 1945. To the point that Army and Navy both went in against Notre Dame undefeated. To the point that if either one of them wins or both win, they're looked at in a playoff sense because they beat a top Power 5 team. But they didn't. They got dog walked. It's Army and Navy, though. Army won the American Athletic Conference Championship. And now we're going into this weekend, Army versus Navy, and everyone's full-heartedly projecting Army to just win outright against Navy. Because Bryson Daly and that Army offense is crazy. They're that good. Bryson Daly, at the same time, has broke records this year on the ground. And he can throw it, too. Like, he can throw it. He is a passer and a runner. He's definitely that improviser that we all look at. College football in general, this season alone, kept eyes on it in all reality. There was not a day or a weekend where you looked at college football and said, oh, those are throwaway games. Even when they were throwaway games, they became major games because you were like, what is happening? The weekend before Vandy, Alabama was Texas. The week after Vandy, Alabama was Texas, Georgia. That's the week that everyone looked at. And then Vandy went in there and upset Alabama. That was unheard of. No one expected that. I take it back to a group chat that I'm in with my boys. And my buddy says, verbatim, because he misspelled a word. He said, Baby could do the funniest thing this weekend. We were like, what? And he said, Vandy. And we're just like, I looked at him as like, if Vandy beats Alabama, Vandy is Baby. I will call Vanderbilt Baby for the rest of the year. And then they almost go in there and beat Texas too. Lose by 3. Daniel Pavia and that Vanderbilt team lose by 3 against Texas, but beat Alabama. You wouldn't even think that. Kentucky lost to Georgia by 1 point. Put them through the ringer. South Carolina lost big game, but won big game. Lenore Sellers and Sanders and Kyle Kennard and everyone else, Dylan Stewart, like that whole team, bright future. Sellers and Stewart have their whole college careers ahead of them to be great. Kyle Kennard's going to the NFL, but he's leaving a lasting legacy that's going to make that defensive line utterly insane for the next 2-3 years, depending on how Dylan Stewart develops. Nick Harbor, how much he develops. If he can, instead of just being a speed guy, he can develop his route tree and be that breakaway receiver we think he can be. It's so crazy to me watching this college football season, looking at the playoffs, and you're just like, everyone's going crazy about SMU and Alabama when it's just like, you know what? For the first year of this 12-team playoff, I think it's perfect. I think you have multiple different scenarios where you can have Indiana beat Notre Dame or Boise State upsetting Penn State in the second round, and then having Tennessee go up into the cold weather and beat Ohio State, and Clemson righting all the wrongs, being a 3-loss team and barely making it out of the ACC championship game and beating Texas just to go play Arizona State, who, by the way, Arizona State flat out beat Iowa State without their number one receiver, Jordan Tyson. That's the crazy part. Arizona State got a bye. They're going to have 2 weeks to get him healthy. And you're going to sit there and tell me that anyone playing them is just going to be able to go in there and dog walk them? No. Not in the slightest. This playoff is going to be amazing. And I actually cannot wait for it to start. But first, we got to get Army-Navy. I want to see that game and see how they do it, because you know what? Those uniforms are crazy. But that is going to do it for this video, everybody. I hope y'all enjoyed it. I hope y'all you like my thoughts and opinions. Hope y'all were able to get through that with me, because talking about this and everything going crazy. Leave your comments down below. Give me your thoughts. Let's create a conversation. I'll respond to you. You respond to me. We'll get this going. Also, as always, link in my bio. I have my Discord server. I have my TikTok. I have my Twitch. On Twitch, we game all the time. On TikTok, I do everything from my fitness videos where I do my workouts and everything, but also at the same time, I respond to comments, do other things. I may post some of this on there. I don't know for sure yet, but I have everything on there, everything you need. If you want to join the Discord, there is a link in there as well. That Discord is open to everybody. We talk about video games, sports, WWE, and everything in between. Be a part of the Deviation Nation. Subscribe, comment, like the video if you enjoyed. But until next time, everybody, I will catch each and every one of y'all later. Peace.